On a cold and lonely night in the wilderness, a Native American girl cries and runs through the snow without shoes. The next day, in the Wind River Indian Reservation area, a quiet man named Corey Lambert is seen camouflaged in white clothing, hunting wolves that are stalking livestock. Corey works in the Fish and Wildlife Department. He is a skilled, dangerous animal hunter from outside the area. Corey then goes to meet his ex-wife to pick up his son, Casey. Although they are no longer a couple, they are very close and united in protecting their son. Corey invites Casey to stay with his maternal grandparents in the Wind River Reservation area while his mother will be out of town for a few days. Upon arrival, Casey's grandfather tells about a local predator that recently killed one of his livestock. Corey shows his tracking skills by just examining the tracks. Corey knows that the culprits are a mountain lioness and her 2 cubs. After confirming this, Corey sets off to hunt the mountain lioness in the snowy hills. While searching for the mountain lion, Corey follows footprints and blood in the snow that lead him to a dead girl with head injuries and frozen feet. From the jacket she wore and the lack of shoes, it is clear she is the girl who appeared at the beginning of the film. Corey immediately reports his findings to the tribal reservation police, who then call the FBI. He waits for the FBI with the police chief named Ben. Soon after, FBI agent Jane Banner arrives in the midst of a snowstorm. Jane seems unprepared for the harsh conditions. She needs warm clothing, so Casey's grandmother lends her some clothes from her late granddaughter. This reveals that Corey has a daughter the same age as the deceased girl. They use a snowmobile to reach the location where the girl's body was found. Jane confirms that the deceased is an 18-year-old teenager named Natalie Hansen. After examining Natalie's body and seeing blood at the scene, Jane suspected sexual assault. Natalie is presumed to have been fleeing. Corey mentions that the nearest house is a drilling site, but it is closed during the winter. Corey analyzes Natalie's footprints and concludes that Natalie was running away in fear. Corey explains that the extreme cold temperature, around -20 degrees, caused Natalie's lungs to freeze, leading her to cough up blood, but she kept running until she could no longer. Jane is impressed with Corey's analytical ability and his help in the investigation. The next day, Jane and Ben visit the medical examiner, who confirms Corey's observations and adds that Natalie was sexually assaulted by an unknown number of attackers. Despite Jane's desire to resolve the case, the death is not considered a homicide, limiting her ability to involve the FBI. According to Jane, rape cases are under the jurisdiction of the tribal police, because this is outside the FBI's authority. Jane, along with Ben, visits Natalie's parents, Martin and Annie. They learn that Natalie had a boyfriend, whose name even her father does not know. Jane regrets Martin's negligence towards his daughter, which angers the grieving people. Jane meets Natalie's mother, who is equally saddened. She is deeply grieving in her sorrow and harming herself. Corey, a close friend of Martin, tries to empathize with him by sharing his own experience of also losing a daughter. Corey tries to comfort Martin and asks him to accept the pain because if he tries to avoid it, all memories of his daughter will be lost. Next, Corey, Ben, and Jane goes to the house of a man, Sam, a drug addict whose home has become a haven for other addicts. They inquire about the whereabouts of Natalie's younger brother, who is known to live there. Unexpectedly, Sam uses a substance to overpower Jane and Ben, causing them to cough uncontrollably. Despite her impaired vision, Jane chases around the house. Suddenly, Sam shoots at Jane but misses, while Jane successfully shoots and kills him. Meanwhile, Corey confronts 2 addicts fleeing with a shovel and incapacitates them. One of the men in the house is Chip Hansen, Natalie's addicted brother. Chip Hansen, upon learning of his sister's death, feels desperate. This implies that the addicts in the house knew nothing. Then Corey notices snowmobile tracks heading up the hill, but oddly, there are no return tracks. He concludes that the perpetrator did not come from Sam's house because Natalie's body was found behind the hill. Corey and Jane decide to follow the tracks up the hill before they're covered by snow. On the hilltop, they must continue on foot until they accidentally find a man's body being eaten by a bird. After returning to Sam's house, the people secured initially are uncooperative and prefer jail, but they open up after Corey speaks with Chip, whom he has known since childhood. Chip links his and his sister's fate to the difficult environment, yet Corey says he had a chance to leave for a better life. Eventually, Chip reveals the identity of Natalie's boyfriend named Matt, a security guard at an oil drilling site. Then Corey shares this information with Ben and is asked to join them at the drilling site location, but Corey refuses, hinting he has other plans. The next day, Jane met Corey and told him about the identity of the body they met, a man named Matt. With the identity revealed, suspicion can no longer be directed at him. Jane is curious about Corey's reason for helping her. In his daughter Emily, she suffered a similar fate to Natalie 3 years ago. Emily disappeared while Corey and his wife spent the night at a hotel, and it was Natalie who reported her missing. Emily's body was later found, mutilated by wolves. This event has haunted Corey for years, leading to a divorce from his wife. His daughter's death also motivated him to become a hunter, to pursue the predatory animals in the wild, or perhaps to hunt down her killer. Overwhelmed by the grim reality of the area, Jane steps away to the bathroom. There, she finds one of Emily's poems revealing her talent as a writer. Corey returns to the place where Matt's body was found to trace the snowmobile tracks he saw earlier, while Jane and Ben, along with several police officers, decide to go to the drilling facility. Upon arrival, they meet the head of security who reveals his ignorance about Matt's whereabouts. Jane observes bruises on another security officer's face who claims to have been injured while riding a sled. Despite their explanations, Jane remains suspicious. As Jane and her team approach Matt's trailer, Jane mistakenly claims that Natalie is still alive and reports her boyfriend missing. The head of security is shocked and states it is impossible because he heard on the radio that Natalie's body was found. Hearing this, Jane becomes even more suspicious because the radio never revealed the identity of the found body. As Jane knocks on the trailer door, the film flashes back to Natalie's last night. At that time, Natalie and Matt were discussing their future plans in bed. Their intimate moment is interrupted by Matt's drunken co-worker. Pete, one of the heavily intoxicated men, begins to flirt with the couple and invades their privacy, leading to a fierce confrontation with Matt. The situation escalates when one of the men hurls a racial slur at Natalie, prompting her to slap him, and a fierce fight ensues. Natalie and Matt suffer severe head blows that render them unconscious. Natalie wakes up horrified to be attacked by Pete. Matt, regaining consciousness, angrily attacks Pete, and everyone attacks Matt. Meanwhile, Natalie realizes she cannot save her boyfriend, and desperately flees. This leads to the moment shown at the beginning of the film when Natalie's attempt to escape tragically results in her death. In the current scene, Jane is still at the trailer door, identifying herself as an FBI agent. Far in the mountains, Corey finds a snowmobile trail linking the drilling site to where Matt's body was found. This evidence suggests that the guards transported Matt's body after killing him. Corey quickly tries to warn Ben about the guards' deception. Before Jane can react further, a loud explosion is heard through the door. The tribal officers are overpowered and killed by the guards with machine guns, while an injured Jane is disarmed by a security guard as she tries to reload her weapon. As Jane is about to be shot, Corey, hidden in the snow, shoots and kills the guard. Corey systematically eliminates the other guards one by one, but Pete manages to escape to the mountains. After administering first aid to Jane, Corey chases Pete into the hills. Pete hears the sound of a snowmobile and looks around. As he turns, unexpectedly, Corey strikes him down. When Pete regains consciousness, he finds himself barefoot on the mountain. Corey demands a confession for his crimes against Matt and Natalie. After Pete confesses, Corey gives him a chance to run as Natalie did, running 6 miles in similar conditions. Pete starts running after a warning shot, but the extreme cold quickly affects him as it did Natalie. He collapses, shivering, and dies as Natalie did. In the next scene, Corey visits Jane in the hospital. Jane expresses her gratitude for surviving the ordeal. However, Corey says that luck doesn't apply on the reservation, where one only has the choice to survive or surrender. Jane appears moved and contemplates Natalie's desperate effort to run miles in freezing conditions. Then Corey goes to see Martin, Natalie's father, finding Martin with a sorrowful expression, indicating he is considering suicide, until Chip at the police station calls him to be picked up. This reminds Martin that he still has another child besides Natalie to care for. Offering a bit of solace, Corey recounts how everyone responsible for Natalie's death has met their end. Emotionally stirred by the story, Martin asks Corey to stay together for shared grief and comfort as friends. and the film ends. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.